Welcome to episode 2 of Deathmatch Wrestling for Dummies, aka me and anybody else really who doesn't know that much about Deathmatch Wrestling but wants to know more. We are here to be educated and informed through the wisdom of Mr. Radu Bulat. How are you doing, sir? You good?
Not so bad. I don't know about wisdom, but I like to think I know a fair bit of stuff. Enough to probably get me labelled as a complete nerd if I wasn't actually involved in the business in some capacity, but, you know, this is what it is. Before we get started, I just want to say shout out to Angry Butcher for giving me one of his shirts when he was over here on holiday and made an appearance for the last Rise show in Leeds as of the time of this recording. So, yeah, hope you got back home safely, mate. And who knows, maybe we'll be seeing each other soon. Anyway.
So, yeah, obviously you sent me some matches. I attempted to watch, or I watched in horror, or I watched and thoroughly enjoyed. There was varying different degrees of enjoyment throughout these matches, which is perfect. You know, I said it off camera. Kudos to you, because I think you picked a good selection of matches from top to bottom, and there's something to enjoy in all of them if it's your cup of tea. For somebody who's dipping his toe in, you know, like I've said that I am, it's a good way of measuring certain things.
Yeah. Well, as I said before we started the recording, what I wanted to do with this particular episode was focus on something which has always been a common talking point for people who are detractors of like deathmatch wrestling. You know, the usual talking point is people who do this stuff, they're not trained, or they're very poorly trained, or they don't know what they're doing, or, you know, something just basically disparaging them for their in-ring abilities, when the reality of the matter, it's like any other wrestling style. There's some good luchadors out there, and then there's some bad luchadors out there. There's some really good technicians out there, and then there's some technicians that are kind of not very good. Even though they know all the holds and things like that, they just don't know the context behind them. As anyone, you know, watching this who's actually has been in the business for quite a long while, they know that it's not so much the moves that you do, it's what you do in between the moves. And in deathmatch wrestling case, I guess it's what you do in between the light tube shots. And
the psychology. The psychology, basically.
Yeah, the psychology, the professionalism in general. Like, I mean, professional wrestling, you know, as a general rule, it's a mosaic as far as like people's strengths and weaknesses, their athleticism, lack of regards in some cases. But everyone finds ways to accentuate their positives and hide their negatives. Sometimes they do this with character work. Sometimes they do this with, you know, their overall, you know, presentation. If you have a presence about yourself, it can take away all. It can basically cover up a lot of your weaknesses. Other times, some people really don't. They really don't do themselves any favors, and watching their matches basically means that, you know, you need a lot more of these in order to get yourself through it. Believe me, the first one that we're looking at. Well, let's not get too far.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight the difference between trained wrestlers and untrained wrestlers. You know, backyarders, things like that, and also what happens when a backyard wrestler gets put up against a trained wrestler, which unfortunately has happened on more than one occasion, and it's just unfortunate with regards to deathmatch wrestling. Those instances, those occasions, kind of a little bit more. It's a little bit more obvious than others, but hopefully by the end of this whole thing, we'll be also including when it's done well, as in the gold standard of deathmatch wrestling, which, you know, Nick has thoroughly enjoyed. So hopefully we'll start at the bottom and work our way all the way up, as any good babyface comeback does. All right. So Do you want to
Good
give
analogy,
the
dude.
yeah? Shall we start with the first one?
Go for it, buddy. I enjoy that analogy, by the way. I like the whole deathmatch wrestling is a massive baby face. Who can't appreciate and get behind it? So yeah, first match is, I just remember it obviously. I'm trying to remember the names. The names are totally. I've just watched that much stuff today.
I'll save you
It's
this.
Negro. It's Negro against. I can't remember who was against.
Necro Butcher versus Travis Dykes, and yes, you did tell me before we started that this one was hard to watch, and not necessarily because it was necessarily the bloodiest match that you've had. It's just, well, let's start thing. Necro Butcher is my favorite deathmatch wrestler, and he's a guy. He's pretty much a deathmatch legend. He's been at it since 1998. He's been to Japan. He's been all pretty much every single promotion that you can think of outside of WWE and TNA. He had an extended stint in Ring of Honor. You know, he is pretty much like one of the guys when you think of American deathmatch wrestling. And this match, well, first off, it was his comeback to wrestling in 2022 after he beat stage 3 lymphoma and during COVID. There's a match that he had in 2019 when he was pretty much at death's door. He was, in his own words, barely over 100 pounds in weight. And he's a big guy. He's about 6'3", 6'4". Yeah, he looked borderline like a skeleton, and it was heartbreaking to see him like that. You know, as someone who's been a fan of him ever since I first started watching deathmatch wrestling. Yeah, and to see him make that Superman comeback, you know, beating, you know, pretty much cancer, and he's ever since then he's gone to Japan again for the first time in like 10-15 years, I think. He's made appearances in numerous deathmatch promotions, and yeah, he's still going at it. Whilst his opponent, Travis Dykes, he's kind of an unknown commodity in the Deep South, in the deathmatch scene there. In fact, that's something I should probably point out. In American deathmatch wrestling, there's several like circles, I suppose you could call them. The most prominent one is the guys on the East Coast. That's where a majority of the deathmatch wrestling shows and the deathmatch wrestlers are situated. There's also the West Coast, who is kind of its own thing, and then there's the Deep South. You have like little small pockets in and around the United States, but the Deep South is kind of like its own island in a way. The way that it was explained to me by the American deathmatch wrestlers who I've been speaking to, Deep South is the American Deep South, as far as the deathmatch scene there. A lot of the guys there just stick to the Deep South and they don't really go elsewhere. Travis Dykes is unfortunately one of these people there, so you can only get like so good being in like one given area, and this is pretty much the same like regardless of wherever you are in the world. So he kind of just like stayed there and just did his own thing. Yeah, I suppose you could say. I mean, I don't know the guy personally. Like, he could be the most genuine, most nicest guy in the world for all I know, and I really hope that is the case. I don't want to I should have probably prefaced this by saying that I don't want to give the impression that I'm burying anyone in this. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. I'm just wanting to use this match as an example of, somewhere where the differences between, a guy with, with training and experience against someone who probably has a lot less training and experience, if that makes any sense. Like in this case, the differences were night and day. Yeah, again, not burying him, just saying how I'm seeing it with this. Necro, because this was his comeback match, obviously came in with something to prove. I mean, presumably, considering he was bleeding right before he came through the curtain, banging his head on there, which is something he used to do quite a lot back in the day. Necro, as a general rule, knows how to work an old school brawler style, sort of in the vein of like Bruiser Brody or Ox Baker. Whilst Travis kind of just does stuff. The one thing that you'll kind of see straight away is obviously the degrees of professionalism. Necro. Now, obviously, Necro, has his character down to a T, and he knows what he's doing. And I could see straight away that he was a little bit more coordinated compared to Travis, and the match was always going to be organized chaos. But I did kind of notice that whilst Necro committed to a lot of his stuff, like he threw his punches and he swung his chops with all as much intention at the beginning of the match as he did at the end. Travis kind of didn't really see it that way. You can kind of see this in like matches with people who probably aren't as coordinated, when they're like adjusting their trousers or their elbow pads or flicking their hair, little things like that. You kind of look at that and you think, unless there's like some actual purpose to it, like, you're adjusting your elbow pad to like, go drop an elbow pad or like swing a lariat or something like that. It looks unprofessional, for lack of a better expression. But if there was one positive thing about this match, I would say that dude in the Jägermeister jersey obviously enjoyed it. If you've got at least one dude in there who's being completely vocal throughout the entire match, that makes a match a little bit more, interesting. Just having like this like someone's drunk uncle, like having his phone out, shouting, "Two badass motherfuckers! Oh my god!"
I like the fact that you've got a fist bump halfway through as well, though. Even Negro's like, yeah, cool, here we go.
I'm pretty certain I do know who that guy is, or at least I probably have seen him on Facebook. If someone watching this can tell me who that is, please let me know. I'd love to say it's that guy.
What I'll do as well, though, is if only for sort of references and points, is I will put the links to the matches that we're talking about into the episode description. So if you want to go and watch what we're talking about afterwards, obviously feel free.
If you can get further than Nick did, all the power to you. But this for me is. We started this one because we figured it was a good example of where there's night and day between people's skill level. And Necro has obviously had a lot better matches, and you can, if you know what to look for, you can see that he's like calling stuff as he goes. So yeah, like not burying anyone, just saying we needed some place to start, and this is unfortunately the way to start. We will, however, in future episodes, be highlighting some of Necro Butcher's his better matches. We will promise you that.
Good.
For my sanity as well as Nick's.
Yeah, thank you. I need to see the awesomeness now of after everything you've sort of said. I'm not going to pull it apart. I'm not going to say I didn't like it. I'm just going to say I struggled to watch it. I'm not going to besmirch either guy. Like you sort of said, that's not the point of this. It's just to kind of highlight certain examples, like you say, of night and day. And, after what you just said about Butcher, I'm not going to say a bad word about the guy, so...
anyone who does a Superman comeback from stage 3 lymphoma deserves, all the praise,
Exactly. We're not worthy. So we'll move it on to the next one, which is the upward trajectory. I'll let you pick what the next one is, and I'll kind of... You don't know what I liked and what I didn't like, so I'm kind of going to see what you pick as the next one.
Okay, well, we picked Masada versus Spidar Boodrow from IWA East Coast. I believe this was the mid-2000s. I believe this was part of the Masters of Pain tournament, but I could be wrong. But either way, excuse me, damn you, Red Stripe. Anyway, so straight away, as soon as the guys walk through the curtain, you can tell the difference in bearing. Like Spider's kind of like, like crunched up together, and he's kind of like his eyes to the ground and things like that. Whilst Masada is, pushes his chest out, and he's a big fucking dude. He's at least 6'4" and maybe 240, 250 pounds. Like if you saw either of these guys, you could probably make your own assumptions about them. The one you wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with Masada, even if I didn't know that he was a deathmatch wrestler or a wrestler in general. Like if he was just some random dude I saw in the streets, or some dude who was just going about his business, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with him, because the way that he carries himself, he looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks like he knows how to fight. Spidar, on the other hand, maybe not.
That's again, sorry, I'll just interrupt to give you my, because obviously I'm going into this kind of uneducated, so I just kind of want to verify what you just sort of said. You obviously know these people. I just want to second that as from somebody who doesn't. I've never seen either of these guys before, and yeah, I will second that from an uneducated viewpoint. I see Spidar coming out, and I'm like, all right, again, not to be smirching, but he's kind of like the local guy. He's kind of like the local talent they're trying to get over. I don't know. Masada is obviously the guy that's come in. He's got a name. He's credible. As you said, he carries himself. He looks like he thinks he's a star, which, you know, he is within that circle kind of thing. And he's also got a very cool hat. So, you know,
yeah, he's got that kind of like 90s, early 2000s, like hardcore music type, you know, new metal type look to him. And it probably will strike you as being an interesting point. Masada was actually trained by Shawn Michaels and Radu Gonzalez in the same class as Bryan Danielson, Brian Kendrick, Lance Cade, and the same like group of students that made up Shawn Michaels' initial class. And you can kind of tell by the way that he wrestles in this match and in several others, in pretty much every single match he goes in, that he has his fundamentals down. Like Masada, I mean, he's the example that even the person at the bottom of the class still has fundamentals and skills far above the average indie worker, yeah, especially in that era. Like, he's a guy who knew how to wrestle before he even started picking up chairs or skewers in his case. Yeah, like he genuinely is a very fundamentally skilled wrestler. It's just that he kind of fell into the deathmatch scene, and that's kind of where he made his name. But you don't ever forget the fundamentals. As soon as they've been drilled into you, you never ever forget them. And in his case, you know, he's been going on this stuff for like close to 25 years, and he's not lost a step, in my opinion. Spidar, on the other hand, well, as far as I'm aware, he was a backyarder. If he was ever trained, I mean, probably someone is probably going to like leave a comment or send me a message telling me that no, he was trained by this person at this school, did this and this and this. But as far as I've been able to research, I don't know if he's ever actually was trained or if he just did like on the job training, you know, like some people did. But you know, either way, yeah, you can kind of see straight away. It's night and day between the two of them. Masada's in shape. Spidar doesn't look like he's in shape. Masada's execution of his strikes, his move, and especially his footwork, which I'm probably going to be mentioning a lot of as we go on, is spot on. While Spidar is very clunky and randomized with his footwork and his shot placement. Spidar half-asses quite a lot of what he sells, and whenever he does sell, it's more vocal than it is like physical like motions. In fact, he spends more time pulling up his jeans than actually selling, which is going to be a recurring criticism that I have towards people who aren't particularly all that good in the ring. It's not too difficult to invest in a belt. That's all I'm saying. And Masada, on the other hand, whenever he does sell, he sells more with his face. Like, granted, he has his hair like tied back, so people can kind of more see it. But you know, it's just little things that I just kind of pick up on. Also, Masada, I've noticed in this one, he engages with the crowd more often, while Spidar kind of doesn't, even as the presumed heel. Like, it doesn't take too much effort for you to just kind of like, after you've done like an offensive move, just turn to the crowd and be like, you know, hands, you know, generic jobber pose. You know? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Was it this match as well? Was it this one? Again, sorry, I've watched them more today, so what kind of blame? Where you had the water bottles on a pole, basically. They just whacked like the big ass water containers, like the 1 gallon jug things. That was this match, wasn't it?
It was one of the matches, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably something I should probably mention. This particular match is listed as a shoot incident. Because, as you notice as the match goes on, Spidar doesn't really sell for Masada all that well. And Masada, because he's been brought up old school style, the repeated no selling annoyed him to the point where he was like, okay, if you won't sell, I'll make you sell. And that's kind of why you see moments when Masada's like obviously like losing his rag and kicking. If he's not legitimately like hitting Spidar, he's at least making them a little bit more snug than he usually would, especially with some of the weapon shots. Which, is a good sign, please work with me. So I'm just looking through my notes here.
But that comes down to the psychology side of things again. It emphasizes what you said, about Spidar. If we're wrong, I apologize. But obviously, if he wasn't trained, that kind of would be an explanation. Or if he was trained or poorly trained, or trained a little bit, that's the kind of psychology that we was on about. That you will be able to tell the difference between somebody who's trained and somebody who's not trained. Like I said, you want to sell. That's your job. You're telling a story out there, regardless of, deathmatch wrestling is still wrestling. That's what's the point of this show is as well, is to kind of highlight the people who get that. Or, for me anyway, as a wrestling fan, I want story. I want people selling. I want people attacking. I want people, to tell me a story, regardless of what match type it is. And yeah, obviously, Spidar's not telling that side of this. He's not telling his side of the story.
Yeah, I will say some small things, because I don't want to dwell on this particular match too much, but obviously, the finish was the move off the apron into that Caribbean spider web contraption, where Spidar actually sandbags Masada, which is dangerous in and of itself. But from what I've been told, Spidar was concussed at some point in this match. I don't know when that was, if it was even true, but. And also, I don't want to seem like I'm burying Spidar, mainly because I don't like to speak ill of the dead. Spidar, unfortunately, died of COVID-19 in late 2020. So, yeah, rest in peace, lad.
Okay. I'm trying to really think about what I said before. I don't think it was said in a bad way. It was just an example of being able to tell a story, not tell a story. That's fine. Yeah, okay. But yeah, so this again it's another. I was able to watch this match from start to finish, so it's a step up. The curves go in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. Next one after that, John Wayne Murdoch versus Mike Fatality. This was from a POR show earlier. I believe this was several years ago. I can't remember the exact year, but it's definitely post COVID lockdowns. It is literally the definition of an outlaw mud show. It's basically someone's backyard, literally, because you can see the house in the near distance, with some sort of burnt out bus as the locker room area, and cars on bricks and things like that, where quite a lot, and people sat on picnic tables and things like that. It's I'd love for her to go to a show like that personally, but that's just my personal taste. John Wayne Murdoch is probably one of the best deathmatch workers on the scene right now. He made his name in IWA Mid-South as a solid hand and sort of a hybrid wrestler. Sort of a mix between American indie style and deathmatch. Though in recent years he added more character to his work, becoming almost like a Memphis Chicken Shack type heel.
Again, it's kind of not broad. It kind of he sort of struck me as a slim Eric Redbeard, if anyone wants a mental image of what the guy kind of looks like. For me, that's what. And then the other guy, the Devil's favourite son or whatever.
Devil's favourite demon, or actually no, Devil's favourite demon is Kane. Unfortunately, Mike Fatality is Devil's favourite son or something like that. Yeah, he's basically a backyarder who runs his own promotion, UWF. From what I recall from seeing an interview with him, he has done a bit of training, but he just wasn't really interested in going any further as a wrestler. He just wanted to do deathmatch stuff, which is never a good mentality to have. Even guys who, even if you want to do death matches, you still need to know how to wrestle. You still need to keep your skill retention up. And the worst thing that you can do is just be a general hack and slash guy. Even if you're getting regular work out there, if you don't know how to wrestle or anything like that, you may as well just like go to some seminars every now and then. You know, at the very least, you know, if only just to like brush up on your fundamentals and to make sure you still remember how to do the things that you were taught. But that's just me. I'll get off on my soapbox about this stuff. Anyway,
if I was in your shoes, if I was working against somebody, I would feel a lot more comfortable with somebody who at least went to seminars occasionally. You know, like I said, kept the toe in. But it's just a safer. As tough as it sounds, as we're talking about death matches, it's just a safer environment.
Yeah. First thing that stood out to me, according to my notes, was the difference in footwork straight away. With Murdoch, there was always kind of like, skipping around, moving one foot that way, one foot that way, like you can tell straight away that he knows what he's doing. Whilst Fatality, on the other hand, he was kind of like it's what I could refer to as the shitty wrestler shuffle, just like, where they're very uncoordinated because of the way that the rings are, like it's a small detail, but it does stand out when you do see it, and you know what to look for as well.
Yeah.
The one thing that I made in my notes here, which I thought was very funny, is Fatality spends quite some time trying to get his blade out. It's like you'd think if you're going to be doing a blade job, with the whole like gimmick under your wrist tape, you'd at least have it like wrapped up to the point where it's like accessible, like rather than just be like, come on, get the fuck out, you fucking no.
And the moment's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, the moment's gone. That said, however, Murdoch obviously saw that he was struggling, so he kept the crowd engaged, which is always a good thing to do, because guess what? They paid for the fucking show,
And it's professional.
Yeah.
I've just got to shout out as well. Have you seen Waterboy?
Yeah.
Right, the main girl from Waterboy. There was a lass in the crowd. You saw it at the start near the bus.
Yeah.
It just sounded like, the one from The Craft that's in Waterboy. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know the actress's name, but yeah, it was like the dude in the Negro match. You just got that one constant voice. And I just like.
Yeah, I imagine that because she was shouting for Fatality, I imagine it was probably his bird. Maybe. I can't think of any. I mean, I'm a heterosexual man, but I would tell you that Mike Fatality is not a handsome man by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, let's get back onto the subject of wrestling. Fatality. Just looking at the notes, Fatality's selling is mainly just him screaming most of the time. There's very little in the way of body motion. Like him selling is basically just him going like solidifying himself up and going quite a lot. Like I don't know about you. This is kind of like a thing that happens quite a lot in deathmatch wrestling, and I hate it when I see it, but close to everyone does it. So I can't exactly point out like.
We'll get to it later.
Names. But anyway,
we'll get to it later. I'll talk about the match. So. Hardcore does it. When we get to his match, I was going to bring it up.
Yeah. I was going to mention it.
He was like the worst for it for me.
Yeah. I will say this: that there were some parts where Murdoch was obviously trying to keep working with Fatality, but he obviously made it look a little bit more clunky than it needed to be. And Murdoch has the patience of a saint for keeping up with Fatality in this regard. And I can sometimes like hear him like making quips to express his frustration, kind of like, and he and at one point, I mean, it's quite clear that he's also quite a giving person, like with the spot with the double DVD into the barbed wire board and the plate glass in the corner. And when they do the exchange with the skewers, it's quite clear that one of them knows what they're doing with it, and the other one doesn't. Like Fatality probably gets more skewers on the canvas than he does in Murdoch's head. Whilst Murdoch, on the other hand, he gets a good spread and very few on the canvas. And yeah,
that's it. Because again, I've never seen that before, and I saw that a couple of times. Obviously, during these matches, and I was just like, "Oh, damn!" Visually, that is just like. Obviously, I know it's not going to tickle. But it's one of those spots where I'm guessing, obviously it hurts, but it visually looks a lot worse than it it is kind of thing. But it looks amazing. The visual image is just like, oh my god.
Yeah, when it's done right.
Yeah.
When it's done wrong, fuck me, it annoys the shit out of me whenever that happens. Like, I mean, the problem is loads and loads of people do it wrong, which is a sad thing when you come to think about it. And also because Masada, as we pointed out in the previous match, I wouldn't say invented it, but he innovated it and popularized it. And anytime that anyone uses it and they don't do it well, fuck me, does he let them have it, whether he's on the show himself or he sees it on the internet. Masada has no chill when it comes to people stealing his shit, and, you know, hats off to it. That's one of the reasons why I would prefer not to use the skewers. I mean, I'll take them, but I'd prefer not to like bring them out, because I'd rather not get heat with a Masada if at all possible.
What if you do it really well and you get a thumbs up from Masada? That'd be boss.
Well, he's very selective about the people that he gives his credo to. He gives his blessing for people to use skewer. In fact, as far as I know, Atticus Koga is probably the only person that he'll allow to use that particular spot. We'll get onto that in another episode, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, this was slightly better than the last one. Again, it's still very much, you can kind of see the difference. As you said, purely if you're just looking at the footwork, you can see the difference, you know, and the selling to a degree. So
yeah, again,
I enjoyed this match more than the last one.
Yeah, I don't want to bury Mike Fatality again. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but in this particular case, it's night and day between the skill level.
But again, I enjoyed this one more than the last one, so the curve is still going in the right direction.
Yeah, we're still going up the arc, as it were. We're getting slightly better matches. So next one is actually from earlier this year, would you believe? Yeah, that'd be the Jimmy Chondo Lyon versus Hardcore from X-Brand Wrestling. Jimmy Chondo Lyon has been a mainstay around the New Jersey, Philadelphia area, and mainly for Matt Tremont's H2O promotion.
Love that guy. That guy was awesome.
Yeah, his heel character. He's recently started doing that. And it almost kind of, in my opinion, it almost kind of like a parody of online troll personas. You know, like the whole like neck beard, you know, I'm better than you because this, and this, and just trying to get a rise out of you, you know. It's basically, Chondo's character is basically how I envision those people. Whilst Hardcore is basically a backyard wrestler who started to develop a name in recent years, and he managed to get onto XPW and a lot of other like smaller indie shows. He's actually recently started training as well, to the best of my recollection, which, you know, is always good. Like if I'm not against necessarily people doing backyard wrestling, you know, if you love wrestling that much, I mean, if everyone's just like doing stuff just for a laugh, fine. But if you're going to try and get into the actual business itself, you need to get trained. So yeah, Hardcore, you know, deciding to go. I don't know where exactly he trained, but I'd really hope that he's training somewhere decent and he's going to gradually become a lot better a wrestler overall. And also, I will say this, I especially don't want to bury Hardcore because I've spoken to him numerous times on Instagram and he is a genuinely nice guy, you know, and yeah, that's about as much as I want to say at the moment.
Well, like I said, I shouted him out because of the whole. But if that's the mentality in the business, that's the mentality in the business. You're selling a move vocally as opposed to emotionally, kind of thing. You know, a lot of people do it. Obviously, if a lot many people do it, it's for a reason. It is what it is. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Jimmy in this. But I thought the whole, just like say his crowd work, he got the story, he got the character, the psychology behind it. You know, at one point when he sits down in the chair, because he's just like, you know, I want to see what it feels like to be a dumbass idiot. And he sits down in the crowd, and he's like, he just gets back up and like, no, don't like it.
Yeah, like that. I admit, I was genuinely laughing at that point. I mean, sometimes you do get those fans who annoy the shit out of you because they're trying to draw attention to themselves, just to get a laugh out of their mates, or just because I don't know why some of them do it. Maybe they just don't have a life, I guess. But yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hardcore's Cloud sword. The only thing I can liken it to is Final Fantasy Cloud when he comes out behind the curtain. He's got like that massive light tube thing.
Yeah.
It looks like the sword from Final Fantasy. I was like, awesome.
Yeah, and then he throws it dead at Jimmy Lyon as well. Like, I'm kind of like half and half when it comes to throwing light tubes. Like, on the one hand, yeah, it's an impressive visual, but so much can go wrong. Like, the last time that I was at a show with death matches and someone threw a light tube, it was a single light tube. But I remember being sat next to the person that did it as quite prominent deathmatch wrestler here in the UK. Came up to them and basically said, "Yeah, don't throw light tubes like that again. That's dangerous." I'm not burying anyone, not mentioning any names. Just saying. As soon as I heard that, I thought, "Okay, never ever going to throw light tubes." Because there's so much, like, it's not like a chair when it's like, just one shape and like you can put your hands up or whatever. Light tubes, they're smaller, they're less, like, there's more range of movement with it, and especially because we use T8s here in the UK, the way that they break is not going to be, it's unpredictable how they break. You might get lucky, you might not get lucky.
Yeah.
So
well, this match again, good choice. The curve is still going up again, purely because, like you sort of said, the character work, the psychology was there. It was, and I love the fact it was kind of won on. Sorry, spoiler alert. If you're going to watch this, apologies for spoiling the ending for you, but it was one with a roll up.
Yeah.
And it's like, how often do you see a hardcore match or death match run? So I can't pronounce my arse tonight for some reason. Or how often do you see them run? How often does somebody win with a roll up like that against the flow of traffic as well? Because obviously Jimmy was like dominating, and then it's like bish bash bosh, 1 2 3 sort of.
It happens probably more often than you'd expect. But that said, considering that it's the type of match that it was, kind of an extended squash, it kind of works in this regard.
Cool. It took me by surprise, obviously not having seen it wrestling, because I'm always just used to these big, from what I'd seen previously in matches you sent me before, kind of thing. It's big moment, and then suddenly the biggest moment, 1 2 3. It totally took me by surprise, it was a good thing. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, Jimmy Lyon is really underrated as far as like a deathmatch worker is concerned. Like I think he is more focused around creating moments than creating ultra violent clusterfucks or this hybrid like American indie style deathmatch style that is quite popular at the moment. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's a place for it, and he'll always be memorable to the fans in that that regard. So can't fault him in that sense.
Exactly. So
as long as people remember you, it's all good.
Exactly, that's the point. That's obviously you want to leave an impression. You want them to come back. You want to buy a ticket to the next show. If they see you on a poster, you want them to remember you and buy a ticket. So jobs are good. What is next then?
The next one is Diehard Dustin Lee versus Alex D. Sin from UWA in Ukraine. Right. So
I did watch this one, so I will. This.
Okay. So Diehard Dustin Lee was one of the founding members of the Naptown Dragons with Drake Younger and Scotty Vortex. He made appearances for CZW and IWA Mid-South during the mid-2000s. He never got as much of a chance as his fellow Naptown Dragons, which is a shame, really, because he's still a solid deathmatch worker. And at the time of this match, which is actually from earlier this year, he'd been retired since 2008, and at the time that this match took place, he'd been working as a volunteer in Ukraine when someone in the Ukrainian wrestling industry recognized him. And he decided to get back into things, and he's basically this show that he was on as well as like the promotion in general, was set up to help raise funds for the Ukrainian army, to basically like help help them fight against the Russians, as the war is still ongoing at the time of this recording. Whilst Alex D. Sin, as far as I'm aware, is just a local talent to Kiev. I haven't been able to find much online about him in English, but as far as I can tell, he's not been doing it very well. Not very often. He's not been doing it for very long. Excuse me. I don't want to, again, not burying the guy. He's just not been. There's not a lot I can find, so I have to assume that he's not been doing it for very long. Yeah, straight away I can see a little bit of ring rust on Dustin's part, but he still knows how to handle the gimmicks. Like, how he picks up a light tube, how he holds certain things. That type of knowledge didn't leave him. Alex's footwork and shot placement is all over the place, unfortunately. And there's several points when Alex accidentally breaks light tubes out meaning to. It's obvious that at some points Dustin is calling stuff to Alex. I'm assuming that if one of them doesn't know English, then the other knows Ukrainian. There's I'm just looking at the notes. The spot with the stapling money. I believe the currency in Ukraine is known as hryvnia. Presuming that's what. And it's not rubles. Let's put it that way. I think he came into this with the idea that the crowd would know what the deal is when it comes to like stapling, money to people's head. But unless you've like already seeded that into the audience's head, they're not going to know it. There's also a spot in here in my notes where he gave the thumbtack back to a member of the audience to try and get them to hit Dustin. That's dangerous. I'm just going to say it now. You don't ever want to give like weapons to members of the audience that don't know how to hit someone safely. Like there's another point here where Alex put a tube to Dustin's neck. That is really fucking dangerous. Yeah, like when there are certain spots that you avoid when it comes to things that could potentially induce bleeding. Here, the artery that's in the thigh. Yeah, just be careful. Little bits and pieces here. Most of this is just like little quips that I've made. Like beer is considered a soft drink in certain parts in this part of the world when they were doing the sit-down bar fight spot. Again, Alex is really dangerous at some points with the tubes. He nearly blinds Dustin by trying to like smash one of the light tubes when he was like behind him. I'm not sure if Dustin gave any receipts in this match, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me if he did. I will say the one thing I really did like about this match that was memorable to me is when they introduced the barbed wire board, and it was great how Dustin registers it. He's literally in the center of the ring, and he gets slid in, and he kind of looks at it like, "Oh shit, this is fucking real." Like he looks down at it and looks at the audience, and registers. That's another thing that Dustin does quite a lot in this match. He registers his emotion towards the crowd. He makes sure his head's up and looking around as he does so.
He tells the story.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the rest of my notes. I don't want to dwell on this match particularly much, and I don't want to bury anyone here, but Alex is obviously a little bit inexperienced compared to Dustin. And also, last note I had, shit ref, enough said. So yeah, that should probably tell you a lot about how this match ends.
Right.
But yeah, to me, this is a good example of someone who has that experience, maybe a bit rusty, and is with someone who isn't as experienced. But it also illustrates that there is still, you still need to know how to handle your gimmicks in order to make sure that the person that you're working with is safe.
Makes sense. Right, what was one after this one?
Next one, Justice Pain versus Drake Younger. It originally started as Nick Gage versus Justice Pain, but as we mentioned, This match is particularly notable because it was mentioned in the Nick Gage documentary for Dark Side of the Ring. This was at the point where Nick Gage was at his lowest as far as his addictions and how his life had spiraled out of control was concerned. And yeah, I don't really want to go too much into that particular part of the match because you can see straight away that Nick isn't himself, even by the standards of the time. And Justice Payne, who is his legit shoot brother, was trying to work with him, but you could see that the coordination wasn't there. And the audience are really quiet because they'd been seeing Nick Gage for upwards of a decade at this point, and yeah, they could tell that something wasn't up. Something was up, sorry. And the finish came really, really suddenly because at some point Payne just lost. He must have just said, "Mate, you're fucking done," and just did his angle slam finish, which Nick Gage was not prepared for, and he ended up landing on the back of his head. And you could tell that Payne was not in a good state of mind after that because he went straight out and he was covering his hand up on the apron. It's like fuck's sake, man. I mean, I have a younger brother. I have seen him at his best and I've seen him at his worst. You never want to see people that you love in those situations. And that's all I'm going to say with regards to that, because we both know how Nick Gage's story got better. Maybe we'll do that for another episode.
Yep.
So yeah.
Oh, we might do Nick Gage in AEW at some point.
Maybe. So yeah. After that, Zandig, who was the promoter for CZW, he was flipping his shit because that was his main event, and it got ended early because Nick wasn't in a state to really work. So who does he turn to? Drake Younger. A young Drake Younger. After he'd already worked a match that night. And as you can tell when he walks out there, he hadn't even gotten his proper wrestling boots on. He'd still got most of his gear on. But yeah, he basically, what happened is after Payne had gone backstage and said, "I'm really sorry," to the boss, Nick Gage got in, he basically just went up to Drake and said, "I need you to go out there with Payne and improvise a match. We can't let the audience go home, unhappy like that. Just work something out." And he was like, "Okay." So yeah, basically, Drake took up the challenge, and Justice called the entire match to him on the fly, according to an interview that I watched recently with Drake. Had a nice little brawl spot to start off with, scrappy exchange leading to the razor's edge over the top rope for a barbed wire table, a little bit with a staple gun. And then he did the angle slam into the thumbtacks for the finish. That's all it was. But it was enough to get the audience into it, enough to get them cheering, enough for them to get roaring at the end of the match. And yeah, that match and Drake stepping up earned him a lot of respect and a great deal of continued bookings for CZW in the future.
That's it though. But again, as you saw, it was short but sweet, but it did the job. And you got two guys who knew what they were doing professionally, and they were able to work. And yeah, they pulled it off. They sent the fans home happy.
Yep. And that was just when Drake was, I believe he was only maybe 5-6 years into the business at that point. So yeah, he learned quite a lot at that point, and he got really, really good. And he got the rub from Justice Payne, who was one of the top guys in CZW at the time. So yeah, that's not too bad.
It's not going to do credibility any harm, is it? So, are we going to go from this match to Hardbody by any chance, just to show the two extremes of Drake Younger?
Yeah, there we go. That basically when Drake is now in the role of the veteran.
Drake older.
Yeah, Drake Younger. Yes, Drake Colden. So yeah, this is Drake Younger's. You've seen this match before. This is Drake Younger's debut match for XPW back in 2022, and he's up against Hardbody. Now I'll just go over Drake Younger again. Made his name at IWA Mid-South, CZW hybrid wrestler, deathmatch, indie style. Got really good in the late 2000s, even in pure wrestling matches, before he took a job as a referee for a WWE. And we all know how he basically got fired for their COVID policies and all the nonsense that was going on at the time. Whilst Hardbody is a Canadian wrestler who got a bit of a name in Canada and Mexico. You know, just doing what like the thing about Canadian wrestling, as far as I'm aware, is that it can be kind of like a bit of a black hole. You know, if you can get over in Canada, but just because you're over in Canada does not mean that people in America, you know, even on the other side of the border, know who you are. So yeah, Body just basically like started backpacking around the place, and he did death matches in Mexico and local wrestling in Texas and places like that, and he didn't really start making waves until his stint in XPW, which is where he got a bit of a name. And yeah, so okay, how can I describe Hardbody? Well, the gimmick that he got given were, I suppose you could say that he was sort of supposed to be kind of like a non-binary sex pest, you know, like a total power bottom, a wrestling power bottom, if there could be a thing. And I'm not even sure if you know exactly what I mean, and it's probably best that you don't know. But yeah, some people are looking at this and they're probably going to go on a Google search and they'll be thoroughly. Let's just say I hang around some really weird people. Anyway, again, not burying Hardbody, but I think at this point in time, I think he kind of missed the point of his character as a heel. Which is ironic because he would eventually become a face because of his performance in this match, and because, well, it's XPW, you know. As long as you can, as long as you get over, as long as you can perform really well, they don't really care what pronouns you use, which was part of his promo. It also kind of like showed, in my opinion, how maybe inexperienced Hardbody is on the mic, maybe, but he eventually did get better. Drake, on the other hand, has at this point shows tremendous experience and confidence in himself, and he's very precise in his promo. He's basically like, you know, he hits all points. You know, he establishes himself as a babyface. He establishes his point in being in XPW in the first place. He establishes his credentials, you know, as a professional wrestler, and he makes a memorable quote at Hardbody's character's expense. You know, old school like wrestling, face heel stuff. I will say from this one, fantastic structure throughout the entire match. Hardbody does hot plate some of his strikes at first, but he does eventually get better. And Drake, on point, you know, perfect shot placement. Shot placement for the gimmicks is perfect for Drake. You know, he hadn't lost a step at that point. Kind of the same for Hardbody, maybe a bit of a mixed bag at times, but you know, excellent timing between the two of them. The nasty swanton bump into the open chair, which is ironically a spot that Drake Younger used to use in his early days. What else?
You had the glass in the corner as well, like the tease of that.
Oh yeah, the extended
driver into well, it went that way first, and then they turned around and then they went that way as well, kind of thing. And I suppose I see Drake on the end of both. I thought it'd be, you know, vice versa. But Drake did the selling.
Yeah, he was very giving in this one. Drake is obviously calling that spot when they do multiple teases. Like I can kind of like you know, you can kind of see them with the move the head and things like that. It shows that he's done this type of stuff before, and you know, you don't want to make it obvious, you know, with these things. So obviously he's a lot more genre savvy.
But this is the match for me that I remember. Obviously, yeah, you know, after the first time you were on were at the left side, we got talking about deathmatch, and I was like, yeah, send me over your favorite death matches. I'll give them a watch. I dipped my toe in a little bit then, and yeah, this was one of the ones that you sent, and
yeah,
I
especially for that
remember it
syringe spot.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's not a spot that either Drake or Hardbody invented. It's just a spot that Thumbtack Jack invented. But yeah, he does. It works so well in this occasion, mainly because of a bit of a nod to you got fired because of the whole you didn't want to get the injection. So yeah. And, yeah, it's like small things. I mean, you could tell with the commentator they were saying oh, that's a syringe. He was trying to stop it. It had some sort of substance in it, and he was fighting for dear life. It's like what the. It's like. I mean, granted, it's the current year now, so we can say this stuff now. But
that's cool. I didn't realize it, but yeah, again though, that's another thing that for this match, another thing as well that kind of makes some of these matches, obviously not so much the Japanese ones because commentating is, I don't get it, but when you watch like the British ones or the US ones, the commentators play a massive part in the telling of the story, the selling of stuff, making you feel, making you care, and not just Hardbody and Drake in this, but kudos to the commentators as well. They did a bang up job.
Yeah, the only thing that's worse than the syringe spot was that nasty swanton bump on the apron that Hardbody did.
Oh yeah, he kind of held onto the top rope. It's like he was in two minds about it, and he kind of he did. He either committed or pulled out at the last minute, and he fell funny. It was like
I saw that and I was like, ugh. It's always those types of bumps that make me cringe these days, rather than people getting stabbed by things. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or if it's a sign I've been in the business too long.
I think because they know what th're doing. Whereas something like that, like I said, because he grabbed the top rope, it looked like he hesitated. It just looked messy. It's that kind of stupid thing where some guy's you're going to pop your shoulder out of joint, or you're going to break your arm, or something daft like that's going to happen.
Yeah, I've been hurt taking apron bumps before, so it's kind of like I feel you there, man.
Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed this. This was a huge leap in the curve for me, kind of thing.
Yeah, and Drake obviously gave Hardbody props after the match for being able to hang with him. It's not often that you get those types of accolades given to you, but you can either make the best of them, or you kind of be like Hardbody did at one point, and he kind of. Well, we could probably save this for another time, but he did a little bit of a faux pas online last year involving a comment on a podcast where he's always been a bit of an edgy boy as far as his humor is concerned, but yeah, there are some jokes that you really, even now, even on the right circumstances, it's probably best that you don't make them, especially when they involve, people who are quite beloved dying of something that they can't help. I don't want to get involved in it. Again, I don't want to bury Hardbody. He was, and I hope he will be, one of the guys in the deathmatch scene in America that really breaks out and really makes more of a name for himself. But for now, he's kind of he's got a lot to redeem himself, even though it's been at least a year since that controversial comment.
So I'm guessing, to my recollection, we have 2 matches left.
Yes, we do, and this is where we get into the gold standard.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the part when we've almost just finished the full-on babyface comeback, and we're doing the part before we hit the final move, before we turn to the audience and go, come on, yes, that. All right.
This is the 5-knuckle shuffle, if I can say that. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, considering everything else that we've said thus far in this thing, 5-knuckle shuffle is pretty much
pretty PG.
It's more or less anyway. Alright, so yes, Jun Kasai versus Suzu Suzuki. Now, some things that I need to say about Jun Kasai and Suzu Suzuki. Jun Kasai is pretty much a Japanese deathmatch wrestling legend at this point. He's been doing death matches for close to 25 years. He's always been a bit of a maverick. He has as a rule, a very self-destructive wrestling style, which is unique to his character. And you can see with the amount of scarring on his back that, the number of fucks that he has about his own health and well-being is close to none. And he is genuinely a really good wrestler as well when he's not getting himself cut up. And Suzu, I think he's about in his mid-40s now. I think close to 50. He's been around a while. And Suzuki, I told you before we started this recording that I was going to say some stuff that was going to completely bedazzle and amaze you. But Suzuki at the time of this match was only 20 to 21 years old.
Wow.
She fell in love with Deathmatch Wrestling after attending a Big Japan show with her mother, and she was working at the Ice Ribbon promotion, which is like a women's wrestling promotion in Japan. And she just went up to her boss and she was like, I want to do hardcore matches. I want to do death matches. Because they're obviously, they're not exactly a family-friendly wrestling promotion, but they don't really do death matches. But they decided that it might be an idea that, we'll put Suzuki through a hardcore trial series. Trial series is basically where where an inexperienced wrestler is put up against a lot more experienced opponents in a series where they're supposed to, learn from them. In the audience perspective, they're basically being, put through the rigor, as it were. It's a uniquely Japanese thing. They don't usually win any of these matches, if they win any of them at all. But it's supposed to be a way to get them experience, and B, show the all wrestling audience that this is a person that they want to pay attention to for in the near future.
They're hardcore.
Yeah. Yes, if I recall correctly, she went up against not only the last one in this case was Jun Kasai, but she went up against Takashi Sasaki, against Masashi Takeda, Toru Sugiya, excuse me. Who else? I believe she went up against. I'm gonna have to look up the her cage match thing. But yeah, she went through pretty much the gamut of pretty much all of the best deathmatch wrestlers in the Japanese indie circuit. Most of them came from Freedoms, but some of them came from Big Japan. She thrived in them, which is something that took a lot of people by surprise. And here's a fun story about Suzuki that you're probably not going to believe, but it's probably going to be a testament to her character. In an interview with the Japanese press, she said that her dream was to wear a wedding dress with a back full of scars one day. Even Jun Kasai said she was nuts.
Wow, dude, that is a lot of people's perfect woman out there. That kind of being like,
yeah. But unfortunately, she's old enough to be my daughter, so I can't exactly even if I knew how to speak Japanese,
you can appreciate the mentality.
Yeah.
But dude, that is crazy, to sort of obviously, being that young, she's still early days in her career, because she's solid, her work is so smooth, and it just, everything about this match was just, I loved this match. This was just I don't know if you've deemed it the gold standard because of something that's been published somewhere or reviews or anything like that, but that is the perfect definition for me for this match. It's just, if you don't know deathmatch wrestling, if you're watching this episode and you're thinking nah, I'm still not sure about any of these previously mentioned matches, please watch this one. This is just a perfect combination of wrestling and deathmatch psychology.
Yeah, this is basically what every single wrestler, not just talking about deathmatch wrestlers, but wrestlers out there, should aspire to be as good in the ring as this. A hot start, but they kept the audience engaged throughout for a start. Great footwork from both throughout the entire match. I can't even think of one single moment where they were kind of a little bit off kilter. Fiery sells from Suzuki throughout the entire match, keeps her face up and visible throughout the entire thing when necessary. We had a bit with the skewers as well. I had to double check this, but apparently Kasai got the skewers after one of the seconds who caught them with the crossbody. Like, you could see them only just it was very nice and covert. It wasn't kind of here you are, mate, cheers. It was all kind of are you okay? Yeah, take this. Okay, put it in his back, away from. Make sure the audience didn't see that. It's one little things as well. If you can catch the audience by surprise with those little things, it makes it a whole lot better. Good use of the skewers as well. Very few fell on the canvas, as we've been saying multiple times throughout this entire episode. A nice little use of the rabbit out of the hat trick with the introduction of the razorboard cross. And I love that little roll up that she does as well. It's kind of like a water wheel suplex in a way, but it's inverted into a roll up.
She goes for it a couple of times, doesn't she? And then she hits it. That's the psychology. They are trying to hit certain moves, and then they're getting countered, or they're not being able to perform them. They haven't worn them down enough yet to be able to hit the move, and then they hit it. Like, oh.
Yeah, she creates like a little mini story with it almost, doesn't she? Yeah. And because I can see this. I saw Kasai communicating with the referee where he was calling the spot with the razor board, where he puts it on her and then she flips it over and does that. I could hear him saying, "Kami-sama board in that, Kami-sama board in that, nandesu ne?" Where is it?
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, this match, dude. I know we've got one more to go after this, which is an amazing match as well. But this is, it's like I said, it's the gold standard for a reason. It's both people just legitimately on top form. You mentioned footwork a couple of times, as you sort of said. You can't think of a moment in this match where they put a foot wrong. I second that from my experience of watching wrestling. Everything looked perfect.
Absolutely, and you can't go wrong with that.
I need to now go watch the other matches, like say her trial by fire. Basically, her paying the dues, earning the respect. I kind of want to go off now and watch.
What's even more incredible is that after that stuff, she left Ice Ribbon in order to help start up the Prominence promotion, which was a promotion that was started up by one of her friends, Risa Serra, who is also a lady deathmatch wrestler, and it was intended to be the first women's deathmatch promotion. Though because of the roster for women's death matches in Japan, even now, is a little bit thin. They had to use quite a lot of male talent as well, but they had a good number of shows that I really recommend people go and check out if they can. And then it was because of this that Suzu Suzuki was actually offered a contract with the number one women's promotion in Japan, Stardom. And yeah, she's been there ever since. I mean, she's not doing hardcore matches or death matches quite as often, but she is still a solid, wrestler. And I imagine it's only going to be a matter of time before, she dips her toe into death matches again. And it will be awesome when that happens.
Yes, something to wait for. Yeah, that's it. Always leave them wanting more. So I'm aware of the time, but I want to talk about this next match a little bit, because we're back in the UK for this one, for the last one, and it totally blew my mind because obviously the scene more than I do. I've never seen a women's death match in the UK before. I don't know how prominent they are.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty certain if it's not the first women's death match in the UK, it's probably one of the first. And fuck me, I'm just going to say this right now. What a standard they've set. Millie Mckenzie versus Emersyn Jayne at Rise, which was literally last month. And they very kindly, the people at Rise, decided to put it up on for free on YouTube. So you can just pause this and go and watch it and come back here and say, yeah, you're right. It was actually really, really good. Okay, so for anyone who has been living under a rock, Millie Mckenzie is a former NXT talent, and she's one of the best women's wrestlers in the UK right now, bar none, second to none. And Emersyn Jayne is another great talent, and the name Main Event Empress is given to her for a reason. You know, it's not just a cute tagline. She's actually that good. This was billed, as I recall correctly, as Millie's first death match. And Emersyn is obviously quite experienced with the style, as we were talking before we started recording. She's done stuff for TNT Extreme, Rise, and a couple of other places. In fact, she actually won one of the deathmatch tournaments for TNT Extreme earlier this year. And yeah, I cannot say enough good things about this match. You know, excellent footwork, which is obviously made all the more difficult by them having to work around the gimmicks. Some are a little bit more further into the ring than they really should have been, but you know, sometimes that can't be helped, especially if you like, you know, have to do things rather quickly. It's the little details that I really like. Like I made a note here. I really loved how Emersyn snapped into a headlock at one point. You know, just little things like that. That just like it brings out the wrestling nerd in me. And
it shows the training.
Yeah. I really love the commitment that they had into the spear into the chair as it was wedged into the corner, and with the whole like suicide dive, you know, the Sabu chair shot, Sabu chair throw soon after. Yeah, like the amount of timing that stuff takes is unbelievable, and yeah, they had their timing was just down to a point. It was absolutely incredible.
They did the things as well.
Yeah, they did the stuff with the skewers. There is actually a small note that I wanted to make about that. Obviously, under most circumstances, it would be seen as kind of a bad thing, but I think it's actually kind of a good thing, because like there were some points where Millie accidentally broke the tubes without meaning to. At some points, like when she dropped down the whole like, you know, pentagram, and when she was like swinging like some of the tubes, I'm not sure what they broke on, but one of them obviously broke before she hit Emersyn, and usually that would be a bad thing. But in this case, I think it actually works in terms of the story for the match, because it's her first death match. She obviously doesn't have the experience with handling the weapons, so it actually works in her favor, I think, and it actually helped made the fact that she eventually would win the match. Spoiler, sorry. It made it a lot more, you know, like yeah, it showed that she overcame the odds, you know.
It told the story.
Yeah, exactly. And the I'm just looking through my notes here. I really loved the finishing sequence with the exchanges of strikes, you know, the super kick giri and the suplexes, which was then extended into another exchange with the light tubes, and ends with like that cartwheel into the axe guillotine driver, as I refer to it.
There's a spot as well where suplex onto the chairs. That just looked.
Oh yeah, that fucking German shit. Yeah, but the chair didn't even budge. It didn't even like bend or anything like that. I was like, oh my god, and that was right in the back of Emerson's neck as well. It's like, I always cringe from when people get banged in the back of the head like that. It's like, I mean, if it's on the front of the head, it's like, whatever. But it's the back. It's like, oh no. Ugh. Yeah, I love the finish as well. I love the finish.
It was perfectly told. It was both of them went out there. Again, you know, we said it about the previous match, the gold standard. You know, they were both on top form. They knew what they were doing. They obviously trust each other, which is absolutely key. You know, you got two people working together that trust each other in this kind of environment. They just went out there and they just delivered. You know, it was amazing. I'm not gonna worry about overhyping it. It was just that good.
Yeah, I have 3 things that I want to close out with this. Number 1, 30 million views across all different social medias. Number 2, stole the show, obviously. Number 3, put a lot of men's death matches to shame. Fucking hell, everyone's got to start, like, you know, we've got to escalate things now. Fucking hell, we got to.
You got to up your game, dude.
Yeah, we've got the up the game. I was trying to think of the expression there. We've really got to up the game now.
You just got to level up. That's
Level up.
Basic. Just keep it basic. Just level it up. Shout out as well. Obviously, popped me the start of this match. So this match has got like 30 million views on YouTube. Did you say?
Not on YouTube. It's across all different socials like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I believe. I know that most of those views are on Instagram. Mainly through this particular account, Pazuzu for May or something like that. It's one of the fans who comes to pretty much every single Rise show. He goes there. It's Lee and Lucy from most of the Rise shows. Pretty much like Brit Death's first couple. So shout out to Lee and Lucy.
The reason I was mentioning it was because I was just happy that so many people have seen. Hopefully, the announcing was on a lot of these clips, and Bobby Cash had a lot of eyes on him at the start. Because anybody who knows me, I love Bobby, and I just popped a little bit. I totally forgot. I just didn't think it would have been on at the start, so I was just quite happy to see him in his lumberjack jacket, announcing the match.
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah. Acknowledge Bobby Cash. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking a second just to acknowledge, and shout out to Scott Bell as well for his Freddy Krueger ref shirt.
Oh yeah, one of the best referees that we have in the UK at the moment.
Again, it's just totally off the chart, But as a wrestler, I said this to somebody recently. Scott is one of the best wrestlers because he's not overly tall, shall we say? So he makes all the competitors look slightly larger than life.
Yeah, and he's actually good. And
he's really good at his job.
Yeah, he's really like that's another thing. Every single referee, a really good referee, is very easy to spot because they're the ones who always check on the wrestlers after they've taken a big bump. They're always like coming in close to make sure in case that any of the wrestlers need to communicate something in between each other, or they need to communicate that they're injured, in which case just stay back. They do the whole X thing, not that style. It's like that or something like that. Anyway, that's straight edge. That is New Jack.
New Jack. That's got to be a future episode at some point.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do something about New Jack and assaulted people at that point.
But no, dude, I thoroughly, like I was saying when I started, it was the perfect curve. We started low. And we ended up at the highest of highs. It was just, I thoroughly enjoyed watching all of these matches for various reasons.
Except the first one, obviously.
Except for the first one, but I enjoyed it because I could use it as a comparison. It wasn't. It had its uses. But yeah, obviously, like I said, we'll put all the episode. The episode. We'll put the matches in the description. Definitely go check out the last two that we talked about at least. Obviously, but yeah, I'm looking forward now. I'm getting deeper into the pool. This is only episode 2, so I'm kind of getting more and more involved now. I'm becoming more emotionally attached.
Yeah, I will say this. Considering how the top 2 matches that the last 2 matches that we did both featured women, I'm thinking maybe for the next one we should do an episode dedicated entirely to women's death matches. There's not been that many, but there has been quite a few which were good. Sorry, let me rephrase. Sorry, I've been up since like 5:30 this morning, and I'm also getting hiccups coming. There's not been as many women's death matches, like purely women's death matches, compared to men's. But the death matches that have happened featuring exclusively women, fuck me, there's been loads of really good ones. And I honestly think it would be good to have an episode dedicated purely to women out there who are completely crazy as all shit. And
I think it's a quality over quantity type thing. Then I think the women, by the sounds of it, obviously we'll touch on it more when we do the actual episode, but it seems like they do it because they're not they don't get into it through the backyards. They get into it through the actual proper training.
Well,
for majority,
maybe some of them do, but the majority of them don't. The majority of them just do it because, well, they're just
crazy. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
I mean, I've known a few. I've heard stories.
We will touch upon that then in that episode. So, but no, dude.
Yes. The moral of this particular episode is get good, go train, be professional, be an actual wrestler before you do death matches, and get your footwork done. Get your footwork really, really good. Know how to sell. Know how to use skewers. And for God's sake, don't piss off Masada.
Yes, that's it. That is the commandments of hardcore wrestling or deathmatch wrestling as we stand at this moment. We'll start trying to compile like 10 commandments. We'll keep adding it to it as we go along. But on the back of this episode, that would be a couple of commandments right there. Just a quick sidebar as well. After watching that Emersyn Jayne, I'm just even more gutted now. She missed Second Pursuit because I would have just loved to have seen her get her hands on Nathan Black.
I would have also liked to have seen Emersyn Jayne beat the shit out of Nathan Black, but I wouldn't be the only one.
Exactly. We'll have to soundbite that. That'll probably get a massive pop.
Please don't. For some reason, I've suddenly become a babyface in Nathan Black's eyes. I don't want him to suddenly turn on me now. But then again,
we'll just make sure he doesn't watch this. That's fine.
Okay. Nathan, if you're watching this, stop watching it and forget that you watched it. Okay.
We're not talking about you. We're talking about another Nathan Black.
No, another Nathan Black. The person on Cage Match who apparently had matches in America during 2014. We're talking about that Nathan Black.
Yes, that's the dude. Not the ever adorable, the other one.
The guy with the mustache who looks like he belongs in a sex offenders register.
Oh, the Pirates beard now. He's got it. The Pirates mustache.
That's not the first thing I think of.
Mr. Bulat, it has been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for continuing to take me down this journey into deathmatch, lore, logic, the world of just carnage, really. So I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to episode 3. So let people know where they can find you on the socials so they can. You've got a show coming up at Super Pro Wrestling, I want to say, if it's not.
That was last Friday actually, but don't worry about it. I will, however, be going back there more than likely at their next show. So check out their socials on Facebook. As well as Karma, and I'll be probably going to Kumite and Rise and other places like that. I'll be going all sorts of places in the near future. So keep your eyes peeled. And you'll find most of my socials on at Radu Bulat or Radu_Bulat, depending on whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X. I still dead name Twitter. It's the place which is a mixed bag at the moment, but who knows. I don't really use Twitter. I don't really use it all that much. I'm mainly more of an Instagram guy, in all honesty.
Obviously, we'll tag you in when we upload the episode. We'll post. We'll tag you in. If you're not following Mr. Bulat, please do keep your eyes peeled. If he's on a show near you, go watch it, buy some merch, show some appreciation, buy the merch. And obviously, you know where to find us. Thank you for watching. As always, hit like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the generic stuff that we ask you to do. More than on the other episodes, leave us a few comments. I'm always interested to, obviously, I'm new to all this kind of sort of stuff. So if anybody's joining me on this journey, let me know. Tell me in the comments. Let me know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying. If you've got any recommendations, if you think Mr. Bulat should talk about something in the deathmatch world, I'm sure he will know of it, and he'll either be like, "Oh, yeah, it's a good point," or "No, mate, I ain't talking about that."
Yeah, again, I'm just one guy. Like, I'm just a guy who spends way too much time thinking about this particular style of wrestling, which I love. I mean, I love all wrestling, but deathmatch wrestling has always had a place in my heart for as long as I've been a wrestling fan. And yeah, just I hope that I can bring a lot of joy into people's lives by me talking about this style of wrestling. And if I don't, at least I annoy all the right people.
There we go, jobs are good. We will be back for episode 3 very soon. Goodbye.
Right.